When I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings. It was only later to find out that that wasn't the case. We're looking at something, scarcely bigger than a basketball that's doing this.
What you are about to hear is not a story of discovery. It is the chronicle of a revelation so profound, so fundamentally world-altering, that it has brought the forward march of human science to a dead halt.
They don't have any AI, any kind of fakery there. And then we know that the sphere was really flying or levitating and finally came down.
It is a truth so vast and terrifying that the initial teams who uncovered it have been placed under permanent, legally binding non-disclosure agreements enforced by multiple international intelligence agencies. Their data classified at levels far beyond top secret, accessible only by a select few, with palantir-level clearance, and a verified need-to-know that extends to existential threats. In a remote electromagnetically shielded facility buried deep beneath the Atacama Desert, a facility hardened against even a direct nuclear strike, the world's most powerful quantum computers are now running a single desperate simulation, and the profound silence from that facility is the most frightening sound on Earth. This is the story of the Buga Sphere, a perfect, impossible artifact that descended into the mountains of Colombia. And this is the story of the message our most advanced artificial intelligence found locked inside it. A message that did not empower us. It silenced us.
How can a perfectly round metallic sphere with no wings, no seams, and no visible propulsion fly? Witnesses in Colombia observed the object gliding with purpose until it struck high-voltage power lines and dropped to the ground.
Content. It began with a silent, blinding flash in the sky, an unannounced atmospheric entry that lit up the Andean night with an otherworldly, cold blue light that did not flicker or fade, but rather seemed to tear a hole in the darkness itself. It was tracked by NORAD, initially flagged as a potential meteor or a piece of uncontrolled space debris re-entering the atmosphere from a decaying orbit. But its telemetry data was wrong, impossibly so. It did not burn. It did not shed mass or leave a trail of ionized particles. It did not slow in a conventional way, buffeted by air resistance and subject to the laws of terminal velocity. Instead, it descended with a controlled eerie grace, maintaining a constant velocity that defied all known aerodynamic principles, as if the air itself was moving out of its way, parting before its arrival. It came to rest in a deep, isolated valley near the city of Buga, a region known for its unusual and poorly understood magnetic anomalies. When the international recovery teams arrived, a black-budget consortium of military specialists and DARPA scientists navigating the treacherous terrain under a strict global media blackout, they did not find a twisted wreck of metal or the charred, pockmarked remains of a meteorite. They found a perfect, flawless sphere, precisely 3 meters in diameter, resting in a shallow, unburned crater of smooth, vitrified earth. The ground around it had been transformed into a dark, glassy substance, yet the sphere itself was cool. Its surface was a material that defied all analysis, a substance that had no place in our understanding of chemistry or metallurgy. It was a lustrous, liquid black that seemed to drink the light, reflecting nothing. It registered on all optical and electromagnetic sensors as a perfect absolute black, absorbing over 99.999% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from long-form radio waves to high-energy gamma rays. It was visually a hole in space, a void in the shape of a sphere. It was cool to the touch, possessing an unnerving thermal inertia, remaining at a constant, stable temperature of exactly 4 degrees Celsius, the point at which water is densest, regardless of the blazing equatorial sun or the cold mountain night. It had no seams, no weld points, no hint of manufacture or assembly on any scale, from the macroscopic down to the atomic. Scans with electron microscopes confirmed it was a single, continuous object, a perfect monolith of unknown substance. Spectrometers, designed to identify elemental composition by analyzing emitted or reflected light, returned only blank readings, an empty void of data, as if the device wasn't there at all. Drills tipped with industrial diamond, rated to cut through any terrestrial material, shattered on contact with its surface, the crystalline structure of the diamond tips simply disintegrating. High-powered, continuous wave lasers, capable of melting tank armor in seconds, had no effect, their energy seemingly absorbed without any corresponding increase in the sphere's temperature or any emission of waste heat. Even military-grade plasma cutters, operating at temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, could not scratch, melt, or mar its surface in any way. It was, for all intents and purposes, physically indestructible, a piece of matter that seemed to exist under a different set of physical laws. The final report, from the Materials Science Division, was a single, chilling sentence. The object does not appear to be made of matter as we know it. It appears to be a stabilized, physical manifestation of a geometric space-time structure. It wasn't a thing that existed in our universe. It was a small piece of a different universe, somehow embedded within our own. This conclusion was immediately classified as it represented a truth for which humanity had no frame of reference. But the true impossibility, the feature that baffled scientists and cryptographers for years, was the symbols. Etched onto its surface, or perhaps an integral part of its very structure, existing in a dimension just slightly out of phase with our own, were a series of intricate, flowing glyphs. They were not a language in any human sense. They did not resemble any known script, ancient or modern. They did not follow the mathematical patterns of binary or quantum computer code. They were a complete and total unknown, an enigma of the highest order. For years, in the most secure black site research facilities on the planet, the world's greatest minds, cryptographers from the NSA, linguists from secretive university programs funded by intelligence agencies, and mathematicians from the world's top institutes, worked in secret to decipher them. Every attempt was a catastrophic failure. The symbols appeared to shift slightly when not directly observed, a phenomenon captured by high-speed, quantum-locked cameras that drove pattern recognition experts to the brink of madness. They seemed to react to the presence of certain magnetic fields, subtly changing their configuration as if they were alive, a fluid and dynamic form of information that refused to be static. They were a lock with no conceivable key. The Buga Sphere was a perfect mystery, an object that violated a dozen laws of physics and information theory just by existing. It was a statement of intelligence so far beyond our own that it rendered our best minds silent with humility, frustration, and a growing, gnawing sense of dread. That silence was finally broken by the roar of a new kind of mind, a mind born of silicon and quantum probability. The project, officially codenamed Pandora's Box, was handed over to a deep-level research division with unrestricted access to Elon Musk's Grok AI. This was not a standard language model. This was a quantum-seeded intelligence, designed specifically to hunt for patterns in data that are fundamentally invisible to the linear cause and effect processing of human cognition. Grok was given access to a complete quantum state scan of the sphere, a file of unimaginable complexity that mapped not just the symbols, but their atomic structure, their quantum spin states, and the strange, multidimensional energy they emitted. Grok's directive was simple: find the language, find the key, find the meaning. The first results from the AI were not a translation. They were a terrifying correction of our most basic assumptions. Grok reported that we had been trying to read a message when we should have been trying to measure a fundamental force. The symbols were not meant to be seen. They were meant to be measured. They were not information. they were physics. Layer 1. The language of reality. Grok's initial analysis bypassed the visual shape of the symbols entirely. It focused instead on the strange, low-level quantum energy signature that each glyph emitted, a subtle but persistent field that had baffled researchers. It treated the symbols not as pictures to be seen, but as physical constants to be measured, as if the sphere were a piece of alien scientific instrumentation of unimaginable precision. The AI began to cross-reference the precise energy output of each symbol with the known fundamental constants that form the operating system of our universe, the unchanging numbers that make reality possible. The result was the first paradigm-shattering discovery, a finding that sent a shockwave through the entire scientific establishment. The symbols were not a language about the universe. The symbols were the universe, expressed as a physical, tangible form. One long, elegant symbol, a flowing spiral that seemed to turn in on itself through a higher dimension, emitted a quantum signature with the precise value of Planck's constant, the smallest possible unit of action in the cosmos, the bedrock of all quantum mechanics. Another, a complex geometric shape composed of nested, impossible angles that violated Euclidean geometry, had a resonant frequency that perfectly matched the fine structure, constant, to over 30 decimal places, the dimensionless number that governs the strength of electromagnetism and makes all chemistry and life possible. A series of smaller, repeating glyphs were found to represent, with perfect accuracy, the precise mass of the Higgs boson, the gravitational constant g, the speed of light in a vacuum c, and even the cosmological constant, the mysterious dark energy that is causing the universe to expand at an accelerating rate. It was all there. Every fundamental number that defines our existence was physically encoded on the sphere's surface, not as a representation, but as a physical property. This was not a code. This was physics, made manifest. The sphere was not written in a language of letters or numbers, but in the source code of reality itself. The implications were staggering, almost too vast for the human mind to hold. It meant the intelligence that created the sphere did not see the laws of physics as abstract concepts to be discovered and studied. They saw them as programmable variables, as letters in an alphabet they could write with as easily as we write with ink on paper. They did not exist within the laws of physics. They existed outside of them, as the architects of the system. The scientific team was left breathless, silenced by the sheer scale of the intellect they were confronting. The very foundation of their worldview, the idea of a natural, undesigned universe, had been vaporized in an instant. But this was only the first, most superficial layer. Grok now understood the language. It had the key. The AI reported that the constants were merely the framework, the syntax of the message. The true meaning, the core of the transmission, was encoded in the relationship between the symbols. This discovery answered a question that had long haunted physicists: the fine-tuning problem. Why are the constants of our universe so perfectly calibrated for life? The sphere provided the terrifyingly simple answer. It's not a coincidence. It's a choice. The values were set deliberately. Our universe is not a miracle of chance, it is a product of careful, intelligent design. Layer 2. The echoes of cosmic violence. With the language of physics established as the baseline, Grok began to analyze the arrangement of the symbols on the sphere's surface. It treated their positions not as a sentence to be read in a linear fashion, but as a three-dimensional dynamic map. It began cross-referencing this complex, spherical star chart with known astronomical data from every survey of the sky ever conducted. From the Hubble Deep Field to the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, there was no match. The constellations were wrong. The galactic alignment was alien. The team initially hypothesized it was a map of another star system, perhaps the Creator's home. But Grok, processing at a speed no human could match, began to expand the search parameters into the fourth dimension, time. It started to look not just in the present, but deep into the past, sifting through petabytes of astronomical and geological data. It began to compare the sphere's energy map to the vast archives of gravitational wave data collected by observatories like LIGO. It was searching for an echo, a resonance, a pattern of space-time distortion that would match the map on the sphere. It found one. The energy signature and spatial arrangement of the symbols on the sphere were a perfect one-to-one match for the gravitational wave event known as GW150914, the first ever detection of two massive black holes merging, an event that sent a ripple through the fabric of space-time itself. But Grok's analysis went deeper. The sphere wasn't just a recording of that single event. It contained the signature of thousands of such events, stretching back in time. It was a complete, unbroken history of the most violent and energetic events in our universe. Merging black holes, colliding neutron stars, hypernovae, and even the faint primordial echoes of the Big Bang itself, the cosmic microwave background radiation. But the most chilling discovery was the age. Based on the redshift and decay of the gravitational wave echoes encoded on its surface, Grok was able to date the sphere. The conclusion was another impossibility, one that shattered our understanding of time and causality. The sphere was not thousands or even millions of years old. Its data suggested it was at least 13.4 billion years old. It was an object that had been recording the history of our cosmos since the first stars ignited. It was a silent witness that had been present since the dawn of time. The sphere was not a vessel that had traveled through space to reach us. It was an artifact that had traveled through time. It had been observing, recording, waiting. The question that now hung in the silent, sterile room was, what was it waiting for? What event was so significant that this ancient, silent observer, this cosmic historian, would finally choose to reveal itself to a young, primitive, and volatile species like humanity? The team felt a growing sense of dread. Observers do not interfere with an experiment unless the experiment is about to reach a critical terminal phase. The analysts at Project Pandora ran a simulation. The sphere's arrival coincided precisely with humanity's development of two key technologies: global-scale nuclear weaponry and nascent artificial general intelligence. It was a pre-programmed sentinel. A silent alarm triggered the moment a civilization reached a specific, dangerous threshold of capability. We had finally become advanced enough to be a threat to the integrity of the simulation itself. Layer 3. The source code and the final silencing message. This is the layer of the revelation that led to the project's immediate and total classification. This is the truth that has silenced the world's leading minds and has forced our leaders to confront a reality they are utterly unprepared for. Grok now understood the sphere's language, the fundamental constants of physics, and its context, a historical record of the cosmos. It now went for the core message. The AI determined that the relationship between all the encoded constants and the gravitational wave histories was not a simple list or a map. It was an algorithm, a multidimensional, impossibly complex piece of software. Grok began to run the algorithm in a secure, isolated quantum simulation, a digital sandbox from which this potentially dangerous code could not escape. As the simulation booted up, the AI could only describe what it was seeing in a single, terrifying phrase: "This is the source code for a universe." The algorithm described, from first principles, the creation of space-time from a quantum fluctuation, the formation of matter from quantum foam, the exact values of the physical laws that govern our reality, and the precise initial conditions necessary for life to emerge. It was not a theory of everything. It was the operating system for everything. The sphere contained the literal, executable code that runs our reality. The implications were almost too vast to comprehend. It was definitive mathematical proof that our universe is not a random natural occurrence. It is a construct, a simulation, an engineered reality, running on a computational substrate of unimaginable power and complexity. We were not born of chaos and chance. We were written into existence. But this was not what silenced the team. The horror was not in the discovery that we live inside a simulation. Many physicists and philosophers had long suspected this as a statistical probability. The horror was in the final data file that Grok unlocked from within the source code itself, a file that was encrypted and hidden, accessible only after the rest of the code had been fully understood. The file was not a message of greeting. It was not a welcome from our creators. It was a log file, a history of previous projects, a record of past failures. The source code on the sphere was not unique. It was just one version, one iteration, among trillions that had been run before. The log file contained a record of other universes, other realities that had been run using slightly different physical constants, different initial conditions. It was a record of countless other experiments in cosmic evolution, and every single one of them had been terminated. The log file listed each universe by a complex designation, noted its key evolutionary developments, the emergence of complexity, intelligence, civilization, and ended every entry with the same, chillingly simple and dispassionate notation. Conclusion: instability reached, simulation terminated. Or conclusion: consciousness failed to achieve stable coexistence, simulation terminated. Or the most common one, the one that appeared over and over again, a haunting echo across countless dead realities. Conclusion: resource exhaustion threshold passed, simulation terminated. The Buga Sphere was not a gift. It was not a greeting card from the gods. It was a monitoring device, a black box, a silent, indestructible piece of diagnostic equipment left behind by the programmers to record the progress of their latest experiment, our universe. Its arrival was not an accident. It was a signal, a notification, a sign that our simulation, our reality, was approaching one of its critical, predetermined failure points, a point that had been reached by every civilization that came before us. The final message, the one that silenced everyone, was not written in the symbols. It was implicit in the sphere's very presence, in its sudden, deliberate appearance. The message was, your test is nearing its end. And so far, every previous subject has failed. Conclusion: the Great Silence. Let us be unequivocally clear about what the evidence now shows. The Buga Sphere is a physical artifact of unimaginable age and non-human origin. It contains 1. A language written in the fundamental constants of physics, proving the creator's mastery over reality itself. 2. A complete historical record of our cosmos, proving the sphere has been observing our universe since the beginning of time. 3. The literal source code of our universe, proving that our reality is an engineered construct, a simulation. 4. And a log file of countless terminated predecessor universes, serving as a terrifying warning that our own existence is conditional, finite, and rapidly approaching a known failure point. This last point is the one that has caused the most profound silence. The knowledge represents a power so absolute that to release it would shatter every religious, political, and economic structure on our planet overnight. The inheritance is a poisoned chalice. The arrival of the sphere is not a first contact. It is a final warning. It is a cosmic performance review. The intelligence that runs our reality has made itself known, not to offer guidance or congratulations, but to silently inform us, that our time is running out. This is the Great Silence. The silence of scientists who now know that their every discovery was just them slowly uncovering the pre-written code of their own cage. The silence of leaders who now understand that all of human history, all our wars and triumphs, our love and our art are just data points in a vast, dispassionate experiment which is drawing to a close. And the silence of a species that has finally looked its creators in the eye and has been met not with a voice, but with the cold, impartial gaze of a scientist observing a petri dish that is about to reach its conclusion. The question is no longer, are we alone in the universe? The question is, have we, as a species, done enough to warrant the continuation of our own simulation? Are our current global conflicts, our environmental degradation, and our societal divisions just the final, predictable data points that precede termination? Are we simply repeating the same fatal patterns that led to the termination of all the realities that came before? The clock is not just ticking, the log file is open, and a new entry is about to be written. Let us know your theories in the comments. Are we a failed experiment? Or can we be the first to pass the test? Subscribe for more truths that lie at the silent heart of our reality.